Hey game composers, check this out and pay attention to the drums. All right, so this video is basically about why you need to route your drum set. This is just a Kontakt drum set, but any of these drum sets in Kontakt or any plugin you're using, you need to get these down to separate auxiliaries. Now, they don't all allow you to do that, but many of them do. I know a lot of the Sonic Couture stuff allows you to sub out your outputs. So it's pretty important to get control and to let your DAW do the lifting on your routing and your effect sends and things like that, and that gives you power for adaptive layers. You can take one very simple drum beat and you can turn it inside and out and let your DAW do that work and not try to do it in your plugin. So let me just show you quickly the bass drums. All right, mute this music. All right, mute these effects. Okay, here's just the drum part. I mean, that is so simple. Any musician, you don't even have to be a drummer, you could probably sit down at a drum set and play this. This is not it's not a hard drum beat at all. So this is both layers. I'm going to mute the adaptive layer, just the bass layer. It's heavy on the kick drum, the hi-hat mic, and then a little bit of room mic. That's all that's in here. All right, now let's add the effects. This is still just the bass layer. All right, so all the effects are going into the bass layer. And now we'll add effects plus the adaptive layer. So there's more dry signal. You hear the overheads better, the toms and the snare are much more present. So for the musical example, there's really only 2 layers total musically, but built into the DAW, there's 4 levels you can take these drums already. So that's how powerful it is. And just show you real quick again what it sounds like with the music. So your DAW is super strong. So if you're a composer and you don't do routing on your drums, this is something you need to do. So let's talk about, I'll show you how to set it up if you don't know how to do it in Pro Tools, and a lot of this will apply even if you don't use Pro Tools, because the concept is the same regardless of what DAW you use. All right, so how do we do this? Here's a fresh instance of Kontakt here. All right, and just the drums, the way it loads up. Now you can save presets, but Kontakt's a little funny, so I usually wind up having to do all this routing. I do a lot of the time over. So if you notice, when I play the MIDI clip here, it's all coming in right here on this default output. All right, and if I wanted to mix this, then I've got to go in here. This is powerful. There's faders. You can do CC controls on your sends and your muting, but then you do not want to be trying to do complex routing or effect sends for adaptive layers through through the Kontakt. You want your DAW to do it. So let's do it. So get this drum set out of the way. First thing we want to do is I'm going to take this output, this Kontakt drums output, and I'm just going to put no output. So now there's no sound coming from this. And then I'm going to add 9 stereo auxiliaries. 9 stereo auxiliaries. All right. And what I'll do is, in Pro Tools, you can Shift Option Command input, plug in, and then we're going to go out 2, and it's going to cascade all the way down. And this is a drum bus, so I'm going to make this one a different color. I'm going to name it drum bus. All right, and then let me just set the output where I want it. Okay, the input's going to go to my drum set bus, and then all of these drums 1 through 8, I'm going to go Shift Option output, bus it to our drummer. So now the idea is that these individual drums are going to go to these separate auxiliaries, and then they're all going to funnel down to this master drum bus. Right? So you have total volume control right here, 1 fader for your whole drum set. All right, we'll quickly name them. I'll probably skip all this. Overhead and room. And this is very typical of how the order it would be on a console if you're actually miking up drums in a studio. All right, so now that we've got our routing set up in Pro Tools, let's get into Kontakt and fix it. All right, so see how we have Kontakt out. Here I'm looking at the kick drum, Kontakt output. The very first thing I did, and when I did the shift option command, cascading 2 through 9. All right, these are our dedicated Kontakt outputs. All right, and then you come over here, you see this little button right here. If you don't click that, if you don't already have it set to default, it should be 28 outputs already, but check your outputs, make sure you have enough outputs, Kontakt outputs. All right, and then you come to your mixer, all right, and you click on your kick drum. We go to settings, and let's put this on 2 because that's where we have it. Kontakt out 2, and then it cascades down. So snare is 3, hi-hat's 4, rack tom 1 is 5, rack 2 is 6, 4 is 7, overhead is 8, and our room is 9. Now if I did this right, when I play the drums, you're going to see them split out. Here's the kick drum, snare, rack, the racks and the floor are split out. Right, and then overhead in the room. So that's how simple it is. Now you can get really creative in here. Okay, you can take your snare drum, you can control how much it goes to the overheads or the room mix. Same with any of these drums. You can change the mix of it, whether you want more of an inside mic, outside mic, how much bleed you want on your snare drum. You've got lots of good controls here, EQ, transients, and compressor plus tape saturation. You can do lots of things inside Kontakt, but routing, at the very least, you want to be handled by your DAW, not Kontakt. So that's there. Now, what you could do is, I'll just show one thing that I like to do, is I like to take, I'm going to bus this to an effect. I'm going to bus it to, this is the snare drum, I'm going to bus this to a reverb. So you hear kick drum, in there because, sorry, that's the wrong click. Yeah, you hear kick drum in there because it's bleeding in the snare mic, so let's take the bleed off, right? And now it should be very clean on the snare on the reverb. All right, so now you hear lots of reverb on the snare sending to this reverb plugin. Now, what I do a lot is let's take, here's the volume of the snare. This is the volume of the snare. This is the send to the reverb. All right. Now you notice when I turn down the volume of the snare, our reverb is gone. Our close mic of the snare is gone. We still hear snare drum in our overhead mic and our room mic. When I turn the volume up, dry snare, close mic snare, plus reverb is mixed in. So here's what I think is a good trick. I take this on the effects end. This is the effects end. So how much reverb are we sending? How much are we sending to reverb? All right, you can have a lot. Take this pre-fader button. Hit that right there. All right, now it's going to send this much snare to the reverb no matter what volume we have the dry signal. Check it out. Even if it's muted. So even if I mute the snare completely, it's still sending loads of the dry signal to the reverb. And that's using pre-fader selection. So hopefully that makes sense, and you can get super creative with this, and that lets you completely control your drums. You can have lots of effects on your drums and reserve dry signals for escalation layers in your adaptive, or to make it more punchy when you want it. So you get super creative. I don't probably need to explain all the things you could do. I'll let you just figure that out. But that's what's going on. Hopefully this is helpful if you're using Pro Tools. And if you're not using Pro Tools, these options will still be in your DAW. So hope it's helpful. Thank you for your time.